And ladies and gentlemen, are we live again? Yes, we are, as if by magic. This is your somewhat semi savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman. And we're coming at you live and in color, which is the best way, from our secret undisclosed location in Newport Beach on Newport Harbor. And today, I want to, first of all, I remind everybody that lines are open 949 629 3820. And we'd like to hear what kind of July 4th you had. And I don't know about you guys, but where I was, it seemed pretty sedate. I know it kind of varied by neighborhood, and there was a riot, a couple miles away with kids at the beach. But I just don't. It just didn't seem particularly festive to me. And my brother has this thing about taking a day of reflection, and that's what I tend to do on particularly on this July 4th. It's no great secret. It's July 4th, 1776. We formally declared our independence from England. But as we all know, while that was the beginning, it's been a long 250 years getting here. And also, you guys know that I firmly believe the New York Times is the best newspaper in the world because of their reporters and their credibility. Uh, what else does the newspaper offer? Reporters and credibility. I mean, these guys, they don't, they don't back down from lawsuits. They vet their information and their reporters and their informants. And anyway, the New York Times opinion section yesterday started out with a really profound statement on the outside of the opinion section. And it was a really big picture with very few words. And the few words were America is still being created. And then, you kind of mosey on inside of the paper. And I first see one of my favorite writers, Maureen Dowd. And Maureen's not exactly a raving liberal, if you know what I mean. And she was talking about or writing about how she went to Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, not long ago. And, just she'd never been there and wanted to go. And so she went. She sees his dentures in the bottle that were not wooden as you'd been led to believe, but actually was a compound of I think human teeth and horse teeth and something else. And they were extremely uncomfortable. And not only that, but Washington had to worry about them, flying out of his mouth every now and then. So he goes through this process. This is after leading the country to a victory, right? Or actually, in the colonies, we weren't, formerly a country. And so, anyway, and by the way, George Washington was president from, I think, 1789 to 1797. So that's going back a long ways. But what Maureen did was she just couldn't imagine two human beings more dissimilar than Donald Trump and George Washington. And I've made that analogy before with Washington saying, I cannot tell a lie, I chop down the cherry tree," and Honest Abe, and then you got, Trump rounding out Mount Rushmore, spare me. So anyway, the way she lays it out, it's almost like an accounting T account. And I stay away from accounting because I suck. So anyway, uh, let's see where she says Washington, was discreet and reserved and courteous. And then you got Trump, who's driven by whims. He co-opts legislative powers that aren't his. I'll give you the tariff example and the war powers example. Oh, and how about this? Washington was not ostentatious. He's not a gaudy kind of guy. I mean, I don't think he might have had anything particularly against gold. I just don't think he, advocated its use in any, in any flashy way. And we, see, as we're kind of getting along here, how about this? Washington wasn't much of a self promoter. He really stayed in the background as much as possible and, refused more when they wanted to give him a third term and more power in 1797. He says no. And, that's Abraham Lincoln said that like maybe 100 years later. If you want to know what a man is like, give him power. If you want to see a man's true character, give him power. And I think that a true character, or a person with true character doesn't is not a power hungry, power mad kind of person who's driven by uh, sheer pettiness, for lack of a better word. So then she goes that. And that Washington was really careful about not getting too involved with congressional rules, and he stuck to his influence as described, or stuck to his duties as described, and then yet I say he wanted into power at all. So what do we have on the other side of the T account? Well, we thought you'd never ask. Would you believe that Trump takes power he's not entitled to? Okay, so far this T account's looking really bad. And keep in mind this all this promotion stuff is or the lack from Washington is a huge contrast from the astonishing grifting we've seen. I mean, if you got time to make $2 billion in a year, you probably ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it's an inherent conflict of interest. The way he treats the stock market is his own little pump and dump operation. Trust me, if there was anybody else, the regulators would be there so quick it'd make your head spin. But anyway, so you got this astonishing grifting in office, and Washington saying, "No more, no, I don't want the power. Give it to somebody else." And we both know that Trump's a pretty giving kind of guy, isn't he? So let's see, he's not in power. He avoided interfering with congressional rules. But you see, Trump, not only does he take power he's not entitled to, he exacts revenge and tests your loyalty. And I want to say something about that real quick here. And I keep talking about Tom Friedman and the new Monroe Doctrine. That was, he attempted to glom on to the Monroe Doctrine, which, Trump, if he can't glom on to anything at all publicity, he'll do it. So anyway, the Monroe Doctrine was supposed to be something like no, and the Monroe Doctrine was like no new governments and countries in this hemisphere, and essentially no, we don't need any competition, and it's worked well since for a while. But then, so you have that subhuman orange tinged creature in the White House come along, and so they have to name it after him. So it's the Monroe Doctrine. And as Friedman articulates the Monroe Doctrine, it is that if you oppose Trump, he'll tariff the living daylights out of you, and if you need Trump, he'll extort you. And I'm going to give you a quick example of that coincidentally was Trump's, I think, first impeachment. So the president of Ukraine, Zelensky's calling, asking for help, and Don says, I'll be happy to help you, but I need a little favor here. So is that not extortion? Is that not something for something? Is that not grifting in an office and clearly criminal behavior? And I think we know that. So anyway, and she said Mount Vernon was really modest, and on the other side of the T account, what do we have? A megalomaniacal gold and ballroom bigger than the White House kind of thing. So it's not. I forgot the arch and the pool and the fire. Trust me, whatever it is, he ain't modest. Okay. And the cherry tree, George Washington would not tell a lie. He did chop down the cherry tree. And on the other hand, you got a compulsive liar who just can't stop because that's who he is and what he does. He just and he's completely I want to say he's completely out of touch, but he clearly has moments where he's more lucid than others. Then again, he has moments where he's much more awake than others too. So let's not give him too much credit. And so, like I said, he was just in. Washington was considered a man of impeachable integrity, no scandal, not accepting gifts because he didn't want to look like a bribe, and So it's impeachable integrity, no nothing, and you got Trump that makes 2.2 billion while in office, and 1.4 from crypto. And what's interesting about the crypto deal is that if you were an investor and you bought $10,000 worth of that crypto stuff that Trump pushed, I think today you investment would be worth, I think it's $364. And now you may ask, where did the other rest of the money go from the millions of people that bought these things? Well, I think you can get it now, don't you? You know where the money went. It's not like Trump makes an attempt to hide this. He dares you to stop him. That's the deal. So anyway, so you guys just real integrity, like Washington, God will sell his soul for $1. And I swear, I say this daily, but the most dangerous place in the world is between Donald Trump and $1. So be careful if you ever find yourself in that position. But the whole extortion thing, uh, it's just laid out right then and there. And there was never any pretense to hide it. He had been listening in. So anyway, that's in the T account. How would who's the asset, who's the liability? Well, I say I'm not much of an accountant for lots of reasons, but I would have to assume, or I would have to conclude, based on the evidence submitted, that Washington was net positive, and that Trump is a net negative. He's actually a gross negative, but gross negative, net negative, whatever it is. He comes up on the short side of the T account. And what's interesting is, he comes, or maybe it's just perfectly consistent, because he's such a zero and so into himself. Of course, he wants Washington to be renamed, Trumpton or something. And there's people that would do it. There are people that would give him his name on an airport, his name as likeness on Mount Rushmore, if that doesn't make you want to puke. And they just don't acknowledge any of the bad stuff. And in that case, they have been nothing but enablers. Hey guys, I'm asking you to please remember that come November. I'm sure you'll remember it every day he's in office. But this is the deal. This is we can deliver a pretty big knockout punch here. And like I kind of did my little poem the other day. We'll beat them so hard they'll be screaming for mommy. They were expecting a blue wave and got a blue tsunami. So guys, I said this is all hands on deck alert. Everybody turn out and do something, and we can make it through this. And the importance of that ties into the New York Times. I'll go into that in just a minute. But the editorial board of the Times, this is like all the really, really bright guys and powerful guys, and they understand. And that in 250 years, our experiment of self-governing is in essence making citizens out of strangers. And once people come here, we have lifted people into security and comfort. We've put power in the hands of ordinary men and women. And in the key 5 words, all men are created equal. That was just revolutionary. All men are created equal. Now, I'll go into how that is expanded from the narrow original concept to what it comes to mean. So we've lifted people up. We've given them new lives. We've let them into the American dream, and with the underlying belief or philosophy that all men are created equal, and as such entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that seems pretty vague, but if you had a vague reading on Benjamin Franklin, he had lots of different sources of happiness. So I will toast Benjamin Franklin for leaving that as vague and open-minded as it is. So the question is, what do we owe these people? What do we owe? Are we free people that can really govern ourselves? Can we really build a society where all flourish? Isn't that kind of the promise? As it come here and flourish, we have a welcoming, uh, we're a beacon. We're the shining city on the hill. We're the lighthouse. People look to us. People used to love to come here. And in, I can't say 2 short years, it's been more like 10. Trump has just chipped away at our standing in the world. And if you think anybody respects us, you haven't looked at a foreign newscast or newspaper. What they call Trump is just, what they call is just accurate. I mean, there's not necessarily malice here. It's just, you know, the fact. So anyway, can we do this? We had it. Can we recreate it? And this goes to the topic, just the promise live on. Can we make this promise because that's the U.S. and that's central to our democracy. But there's of course there's always some obstacles, and in when people govern themselves, they have to more or less share the same reality, and they have to agree on truth. And if you can't agree on what's real, then you can't really deliberate. So that clearly gets in the way of keeping our promise. Or how about this? Can we still bear to lose? Are you focused on the rules or are you focused on the outcome? If you focus on the rules, as long as they're fair, that's one thing. But if you'll just do anything in your power to win, that makes a mockery of the promise. So we need to, make a decision. Excuse me, person by person, family by family, and I'm going to go one step further. Jury room by jury room. Do you follow the rules for evidence, or do you hang them high regardless? And I'm going to tell you, just as a kind of aside from all that, that hang them high mentality is borderline sadistic. I mean, it's always bad when a state gets involved in the killing of its own, and for a willing jury to ignore evidence that can establish somebody's freedom in favor of just hang them high or let God sort it out later. They don't help our democracy survive one bit, because they under the rules you should have had this result, but instead you got that outcome. Okay. So anyway, and so the time kind of goes on, and can we recover our conviction that everything's fairly counted, and that a loss is not a disaster, but just kind of the price of a system worth keeping. So there's lots of deeper implied promises. There aren't any, of course, express promises where if you immigrate here, we'll was it life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and a car and you know and a house in the suburbs, and whatever else. Uh, so and and but again, how did we do this? We did this because people worked, and this was the promise that workers can rise and the children can have a better life. Uh, so they can't. God just left the thing up to cover up, so it's going to catch wind and blow away. But anyway, can we give our children a better life? As of now, it doesn't really look like it. I mean, I know lots of people whose kids will never do as well as they did. They may never be able to own a house. Uh, and there's just so much, when you have this much inequality, you have, living standards going down for the masses. And think about this inequality. Elon Musk, the first trillionaire, I think that kind of wealth was dangerous. I think when you get to be worth more than countries and nations, I think that's a real problem. Uh, but what about the problem? And how about even the grifter in chief, the tyrant himself? How come he makes $2 billion a year, and your food stamps get reduced, and your medical care gets taken away? You see a pattern here. Your $10,000 deposit got taken away. In exchange, you got $364 and a bunch of Trump worthless coins. Now, why not like the beans? And there was somebody buys like something that's not worth very much. Is that Jack and Beanstalk? Anyway, the bottom line is Trump took you again. So we have to remember that the promise was not about fairness of result. It's in fairness of opportunity. Who has the opportunity to make a better life? And the last 50 years or so have been a little disappointing, you know. Uh, and how about this? How about can the most pluralistic nation in history remain one people? No other country has tried to do what we did. We took people of every origin, religion, language into citizenry by their agreeing to a set of ideas. Not were your parents here, not by blood, not by the land. Are you citizen because you own land? And don't forget, in the states, to own land, you had to be free, white, and 21. So it did, go by land, and you know how it goes by blood. You know how the clans kind of not that clan, but the old like Scottish clans would keep together to keep the outsiders out. And so in the old days, you had the original thing, we the people. But like I said, we the people meant essentially, free white males over 21. That's what was commonly understood to have meant back then. But how about this? How about a little later? Do you get the abolitionists invoking uh, the Declaration of Independence against slaveholders? Are they not free? How about the marchers in Selma against the troopers? We want equal protection, equal rights. What's so bad about that? How about suffragettes when they wouldn't let women vote? Uh, again, we the people got expanded to now include women. What a big deal that was, huh? Or how about even places like that famous gay bar in New York? Was it the Stonewall Inn? And you've got the customers on one side saying, we're equal, you can't discriminate, and you got the cops at a raiding place going, get out of here, you pervs. And in all those instances, the declaration has come through. Everybody's been held to be equal, and the Stonewalling customers have a right to gather and drink and do whatever they want to do at the Stonewall. Women have a right to vote. Can you imagine just telling your wife no? And how are the marches at Selma? Do you know what those guys went through? I'm sure you, or I'd like to think you've at least seen movies or something. But these were uh, people, I mean, they just want to be treated fairly. And the reason they had been treated unfairly was skin pigmentation. And guys, that's, I can understand limited human thinking, but it's still pigmentation. Call it what you will. Uh, so anyway, do all Americans count as the people? Kind of depends on who you ask, doesn't it? And will we still welcome strangers? Well, we're not doing a very good job of welcoming them now. Matter of fact, we're doing a good job of exporting our finest to other better places. And again, it lays at the feet of one guy. And I'll go into this a little later, but my word for the day is tyrant. And I'll try to come up with an appropriate image. But tyrants are people that just they use their power unfairly to, and they use it to extract revenge. And they, make a long story even longer. They're just if you're a tyrant, nobody likes you. That's what happens when you have absolute power in one guy. And I think you can see kind of where our current uh, orange tin some human being that's in the White House would kind of qualify like that. Okay, so we've kind of beaten all that, but are we still going to have new people coming? That's what we were. We were a nation of immigrants. I remember that whole taxation without representation, freedom of religion. We do people here from. I mean, I can't imagine how many religious groups there are in the D.C. metro area, Los Angeles metro area, or New York tri-state area. I know I went on a little spiritual journey a while back, and I was curious what I know what my guys are thinking. I don't know what anybody else's guys are like. So I went to the mosque for a couple of times and met the imam and chatted all that. Met his sons. Went to the Buddhist temple, which was really cool. Where the first guy I met, Sri, was the son of the priest. And the Buddhists, of course, are really interesting. And it's not idol worship. It's more like paying respect to a trait, to patience, to intelligence, to different aspects of being human. I tell you, I don't have cartilage in my knees, so I had a hard time sitting and crossing my legs and all that. I think they thought I was clearly unfit, but they were really nice, and I think they have like 2 or 3 big days a week. I think Friday evening is a really big one, and but again, people couldn't be nicer. Whoa. So let's see what I do after that. Oh, after that, I went to the Sikh Gurdwara up here. And, of course, Orange County has a huge Sikh population. And I'm going to tell you, I think those guys have it down. In Sikhism, all are equal. The prime minister comes into the room, he sits on the floor next to you. And there's just no pretext, no pretense at all. And if you ever chatted with a Sikh or even just kind of looked around, they are they take pride in honesty. I mean, this is a national value to be honest and forthright and to be smart and to study hard and work hard. And I would tell you, I think those guys have it. There's not a Sikh I wouldn't. Well, I'm sure there's one, but as a general proposition, if you leave $100 bill in a Sikh temple and you leave, it'll be sitting there when you get back. It's incredibly refreshing. But again, these guys are from Punjab in India. These are the new Americans. The people from I don't know. Well, Europe's kind of an old hat, but I mean, and I guess the bulk of the immigration or the would-be immigration would be from Africa. In Europe, everybody's it's getting hot there. It's not livable. Paris, how many people died over the weekend? And I think if they say got up to 32, it was like 110 degrees. And, you or I might think 110 is not that hot, but I think it's a different horse of a different color if you're in a city, in an apartment where it's just stifling and the fan is only blowing the hot air around because nobody or relatively few people in Europe have air conditioning. Uh, So that's not exactly what we built on, is it? We built a promise to take care of people in their old age through Social Security, uh, but we need new blood and new contributions, and you can only do that by being welcoming. And I'm going to submit to you that the evidence would support the conclusion that the Trump administrations have not been welcoming and indeed have been so hostile that people really hate us. I mean, can you name an ally that we, really can count on? We used to be able to count on everybody, and everybody used to be able to count on us. But see, that's until Trump wanted to ride into town and show that there's a new sheriff, and it's his way or the highway. And I had always thought that if Trump met his downfall, it was going to be in Washington D.C. because there's a lot of really smart people with a lot of resources, and I used to think he wouldn't stand a chance. Now, of course, I'm a little, a little anxious as to the future, uh, but I just kind of needed to go off on the strange, not stranger, but just new citizens, new people, new blood. We don't, that's who we are. And for people to deny that on TV and then have it to spread on the internet is just unconscionable. If anybody tells you it was that the primary reason for the establishment of the colonies was freedom of religion, and shouldn't it be that way? Shouldn't the woman from Indonesia be able to worship just as freely as the Jewish guy going to temple, or the Episcopalian guy going to the church, or the Presbyterian or the Catholic going to the cathedral? I mean, don't we all share that right in the U.S.? Well, it may be written that way, but I mean, not long ago the oldest synagogue in Mississippi was burned. Arson. Some guy just didn't like the fact that it was associated with Jews. Okay, and I don't see where any mosques are being burned. I don't see. Yeah, there's always a bit of violence, but God, I mean, it's just so it flies in the face of what we are. We have an opportunity to really be that shining example, and it's impossible to be there as long as you have uh, an uninformed electorate who will frankly fall for Trump's constant lying. I mean, the guy's never been a paragon of virtue. And just today it was funny. He was on whatever it was, ringing the bell, ringing the opening of the New York Stock Exchange and the Nas to celebrate the Trump account. And between you and me, before you go any farther, if I hear one more effing thing coming out of Washington D.C. with his name on it, I'm just gonna puke. I mean, enough is enough. We don't like you, Donald. No matter how much your legion tells you how great you are, no matter how much your legion worships you and idolizes you and hangs on your every thought and lives in fear of your temper every moment. That's just not who we are. So I would like to think that we'll shift it back this time. But guys, you can't take anything for granted these days, especially with an unstable 80-year-old who wouldn't really surprise anybody if the guy nuked some. I have no idea who he would nuke, but I mean the big thing would be to hope to God the orders never carried out. But he's 80 years old and in cognitive decline. This is the time to get him out, not enable him. Did you Republicans kind of get that? This is the time to get rid of him. And the truth of that is, had you gotten rid of him at the first impeachment, we wouldn't have this problem now. But once you sell your soul, Republican Party, it's really hard to get it back. And you didn't just sell it to anybody; you sold your soul to the devil, or the political equivalent of an image of the devil. Even though the way he takes away people's food and with SNAP benefits and eliminates medical care and medical insurance subsidies, it's hard to see the guy as anything than a force for evil. I mean, I don't. When do you ever advocate anything good or anything fair? Yeah, and it's just impossible for him to do. He cannot articulate goodness. He cannot articulate fairness, and like I say, I would like to think he deceived a substantial number of Republicans and independents. But the fact of the matter is, you voted for him. And whenever somebody tells me, "Well, I voted for Trump reluctantly," I'm like, "Well, uh, when you say reluctantly, does that mean you like pulled the lever halfway and then stopped, or maybe you just you weren't really that sure, so maybe I'll only pull it 25% of the way?" And of course, I get really ticked when I mention this, but Fact of the matter is, you pulled the lever, or check the box, whatever it was you did it, and this is what happened. And the big deal: elections have consequences. That I love the woman that was on CNN a while back, and I think she was a three-time Trump voter. The CNN guy says, "And how many times you voted for President Trump?" And she goes, "Three times. I must be an idiot." And you're thinking, well, when the shoe fits, wear it. But yes, you're an idiot. And the bad thing is, idiots' vote counts just as much as a legitimate Nobel Peace Prize winner's vote counts. That's what we're about. But think about this: with Trump Save America and the voter registration stuff, is he trying to expand the pool of voters, or is he trying to downsize the pool of voters? Well, he's trying to downsize the pool of Democratic voters while he's clearly increasing the influence of Republican office holders. And let's not forget that mid decade redistricting mess. The fact of the matter is that they just they don't play fair. And I'll give you another really great example of this. The other day, I forgot what judge it was, ordered the final, complete, unredacted Epstein files be released. Did I say complete, unredacted? Okay, complete, unredacted. That means like words on the page. Okay, that means like no long black rectangles where text is blotted out. None of that. That means the full, complete text. She probably meant one that she could like read herself. I think it was a female judge. And so what's the Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal lawyer, say? And the guy must have been a good lawyer. I mean, he was only like a partner at Cadwalader in New York. I mean, this was he was a big deal in the as far as his legal job. So anyway, so the judge orders the complete complete unredacted release of the Epstein files. And so what's Blanche say? He says, more or less, Your Honor, we've substantially complied with your request, and we just can't do any more. And I guarantee the judge is going to look at that, and she's going to call him into court, and it would not surprise you if he gets cited for contempt. And at that point, you have the Attorney General of the United States being cited for contempt. And guess what? What do you think might just be redacted that they don't want unredacted? And there's an old police guy on TV, Telly Savalas, and he was Kojak. And Kojak had like what was his name? Yeah, Telly Savalas. And he had this thing about he didn't believe in coincidences. And I'm like, well, it seems like at the same time that Attorney General Blanche doesn't want to release the complete unredacted files, that it just might be because somebody's name is in there. And so if somebody's name is in there, it probably describes them doing something that has a substantial likelihood of being illegal. Morality, we threw out the window a long time ago. Biden got it right when he said Trump had the morals of an alley cat. And we voted for him, or you voted for him. Just it was like America was showing a decent person, and it was showing a monster, and it chose the monster. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that the world exactly respects. And in case you guys hadn't noticed, the world's become a lot smaller. I mean, every day I come across people that are coming or going, somewhere. This is just talking at the gym. So anyway, what I'd like to do is kind of move on a little bit. I don't really want to wrap this up. I do want to kind of try to tie the threads together. and I'm going to measure this. I'm going to go out kind of positively here. And we've had chances to fail. Iran beat us. That's beyond the shadow of a doubt, right? But we didn't fail when the country was split into two during the Civil War, and 750,000 Americans died. And I'm going to tell you, back in the Civil War days, when you fought with like trenches, you were maybe 3 feet away from a guy with a musket, and you were 3 feet away from him with a weapon that could cause extreme damage, and but it wasn't terribly accurate. So, I mean, a shot in the leg, and your leg might just explode, and of course you would die. But anyway, the point is that 750,000 Americans died, probably horrific deaths. And you know what else we didn't fail? We came through the Depression, and we came through the breadlines of the Depression. Hoovervilles. We were staring at all that, and we didn't yield, we didn't buckle, we didn't follow the best economic practices, but we did not fail. And after that, after the Depression, what happened? There was this existential war, World War II. We could be speaking German or Japanese if things were slightly different. And what was that war against? Power, fascism. That's power. And you know what? How about in the '60s when you had all the civil rights marches and the anti-war Vietnam marches? You had cities burning. I mean, that's when National Guard was necessary. And as a liberal Democrat, even I will admit to that. So we had these burning cities. I mean, people still talk about it in Los Angeles, but we didn't fail. And after that, what happened? Vietnam. Then there was this Cold War, and when the Soviet Union then wanted nothing but to bury us, but we didn't fail. We came through. Each time we proved to be durable because enough people decided that we're not going to go for the alternative. We're not going to be a nation in flames. We're not going to be intimidate. We'll get through. But you see, now, well, again, it's always point. Democracy isn't just like a house or an American institution that we just kind of come and go with. We've got to practice it, or we're going to lose it. And and if we lose it, it's going to be to fascism or something. And it'll be to a dark force. If we lose, I'll tell you exactly what we'll lose. And I can't put this any simpler. We will lose the right to govern ourselves. Think about that as we're just starting the midterm election push. I mean, think about that. What if you could no longer vote for your congressman, your city councilman, your president, your senator? Or how about your water district guy? Or how about your supervisors or your city council? Think about how deep this right to vote is. And it's the whole notion of self-governing. And, we all know, it's been around in various forms. I think the Greeks were the first ones to really, practice it. But the notion of, like cooperative governments, maybe tribal councils, I mean, there have been cooperative uses of power before. But now we have someone who is actively working to destroy the cooperative powers. He just wants to seize absolute power. And if you don't think that I don't even know what to call it, the renovation of DC into Trump's image and likeness is endearing him to people. Again, he's showing you who and what he is. He wants his name on everything. And how when he put the scaffold up so you couldn't see his name being taken down off the Kennedy Center? Guys, that's the person you got elected as president. And I always thought it was a bad idea when the stupidest guy in the world and the guy who had the nuclear codes were the same person. But you guys did this, and there can never be any healing without recognition of the problem. And I do think some people are starting to recognize the problem. I can only hope that it's enough. And even with all that, and I'm going to tell you the really lousy or a lousy interpretation of this is somebody's going to use the Trump making $2 billion as proof that he's a financial genius. And you can't. It's always a bad idea to confuse criminality with genius. Uh, but if that's true, excuse me, let me. I'll throw it. But just on the off chance that it's true, that he really is. Sorry, I think this is really funny. But on the off chance that he really is a financial genius, how did he manage to bankrupt 6 casinos or 6 casino ventures? Isn't that the one deal where you're like guaranteed to win? And that why the house or not the house, but all the nice hotels in Las Vegas are so nice, and because people like spend money or lose money, and so anyway, he's not a financial genius. If you want to believe the what was that thing, The Apprentice, believe it. But if you think that's real too, then you probably enjoyed seeing the UFC cage match the other night. Can you imagine any other? Any other president or every other president has had some respect for the office. And I think when you see Trump imposing himself on the office as a downright admission that it doesn't mean anything to him. The only thing that means anything to him is, you guessed it, him. Oh, guys, I've been ranting so long. I forgot to give out the phone number, 949-629-3820. And give us a call and let me know what you think about the country on this as we just pass our 250th. What do you think's going to come? I will be really straightforward. I think these midterms are going to have an outsized effect. I really think that everyone's going to turn out for this. I'd kind of like to see another no kings or so, just for the camaraderie. And by the way, I want to give a shout out, congratulations to everyone, everywhere, every country, every chapter, group, division. I don't care what you call it. I want to personally thank the people from Indivisible. I think it was like a man or woman that started it together. I don't know the details, but I do know that these guys understand grassroots politics, and they get it, and it's a real battle. I mean, think about the name, Indivisible, and then they come from the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And are we indivisible anymore? It seems to me as though Trump's done a pretty good job of divisible. I think if he hasn't put neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend, family member against family member, I don't think anyone else has, at least not in recent history. So let's let's kind of get back to my last few points while my voice is holding out. So yeah, we got to work at this. So I think that this anniversary ought to be, like I said, more than fireworks, flags, and speeches. And I'll repeat that for someone who's an orange tinge, some human being in the White House. So let this anniversary be more than fireworks, flags, and speeches. Let it be a renewal of the work, a reminder that the right to govern ourselves is also the obligation to govern ourselves well, to show up, to listen, to tell the truth, and extend to one another the basic decency of shared citizenry provides. Is that too much to ask for? Probably. Uh, and let's get a little philosophical here on the tail end here. And what do you guys see for the next 50 years? Another, maybe what, 2076? Clearly, I'll be dead and gone, but hopefully the world will be here, and hopefully the states would be flourishing again. Uh, I'd like to think that, and the truth matters, it might take 50 years to recover from what hath Trump wrought. The Doge wanton destruction and the USAID deaths. And, it's just been, Trump has set the world on fire. And, when he gave you know, Netanyahu was going to do what he's going to do regardless. But Trump is such a gullible guy. And the reason he's gullible is because he doesn't take in information to make an informed decision. And think about this. If you don't make a decision based on facts and analysis and, briefings, all this, if you don't make it on that kind of stuff, what do you make a decision on? And well, that orange skinned subhuman being is good enough to say, well, I know because it's in my gut. I'm like, holy mother of God. You can, pass up all this analysis about the possibility of being nuked because your gut tells you something. God, we'll be lucky to get, if we get past Trump, we could be doing okay. It'll take a while. We've got to, restaff a lot of those agencies, re-up a lot of those research grants, see if we can talk our people into coming home, after establishing new lives elsewhere, where they might really like it, where they're not really exposed to the implications of a Trump presidency. And the implications of a Trump presidency are that you can see minority rights just eviscerated. You can see the guys like on the train. They had the masks on, and I forgot the particular militia group they are, but they've got masks on, sunglasses, and they're on the metro, the Washington subway, D.C. subway, and they're just standing around this one black woman. And I can only imagine how intimidated and how afraid that woman must have been. And, on the one hand, I like to, you see them for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And on the other hand, just, publicity gives those guys air. So exactly how we beat them, what comes after the ballot box, I don't know. But I can tell you that the promise of America, the promise they made to each one of our families when we came here, was that you have a say in the outcome. You're equal. Cast your vote. Let's see what the majority says. And like I said, we've just got to pray that we can outsmart or anticipate the Republican game plan, because those guys been working on cheating. And and don't you really get tired of Trump going about his piousness or piety? And he said something like, I made $2 billion in office, but I don't get too involved with the crypto stuff. I think the office is more important. Well, you could act like it, pal. But again, he knows the words, he knows the lies. He doesn't know the reality. Uh, so anyway, and so what are we gonna do? I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. I know what the promise is. We've promised to make it better for those that came after us. And I've got a huge 2 points I want to make about that. And what if we put into motion something so terrible that after we die, everybody's kids and grandkids are going to have to pay for it because we spent so much money. And it's going to take a lot of money to fix. And I'm going to cite two things. The first thing you may not expect, but how about climate change? Don't we have an obligation to do something about that? I mean, for our future, for our kids. And apparently, Trump just says, well, no, it's a hoax. And whenever Trump says something that's a hoax, you can take it to the bank. That was true. You know, he just lies. I can't, why anybody actually believes. I think people have kind of believing what they want to believe about him. Uh, but the objective facts, I think, if you had him in a courtroom like we have seen him, we know what his track record is for telling the truth. Uh, he got on stand and told the truth about those 34 business fraud counts with Alvin Bragg. And if I'm not mistaken, he got like 34 convictions. And having the E. Jean Carroll, well, not only did he lose the $5 million, which he never paid, but he lost another 83 on top of it. And he just isn't going to pay. You can tell he's just not going to pay. Uh, should he be in jail? Sure. I do have some understanding as to why you don't want to throw him in jail while he's in office, but if does something criminal in office, then shouldn't he go to jail? Why did you get this, like newly created president's immunity that you see nowhere? I mean, you see evidence of the contrary in all the founding documents. Nobody wanted a supremely powerful president. Like no one. Uh, I mean, they might have put it, number one, the executive branch and all that. But it was designed to be three co-equal branches, and that meant one did what the other one did and respected. You didn't have an attorney general going, F you to the federal judge. That's not how we keep things in order. That's not how we keep the republic going. And we need to address each and every one of these things because the Republicans not only they not address it, they acknowledge it and kind of wink and nod and like, yeah, made some money on that one. And I'm like, you worthless so and so. You were elected to make someone's life better, to help matters, and you're telling me that everything's okay because the Prius made $2 billion. Guys, I think that clearly misses the mark of America. And even though we're still being creative, we've had our moments. The way we've treated the Native Americans was just horrific. Slavery, of course, and not only was it slavery, that was 100 years after with Jim Crow. We've got some dark moments in our history, but we've done well to at least recognize them and address them in some way. Of course, racism isn't completely dead. There's still tons of discrimination in the South. There's still lots of poverty in the South. And just about all the rural areas that suffered some brain drain. So what do we do to make our democracy healthy? Well, number one, I think you have to start out with good schools, feeding kids breakfast, the Pledge of Allegiance, and some history lesson, ongoing, of course, about the U.S. and what it means to be a citizen. Didn't they used to have? I think they had courses like that. Didn't they call them like civics or something? That would be a superb way to instill in children how important it is to live up to the standards of the country. Now, you might want to call this indoctrination and all that. And I think it was Nikita Khrushchev who said something like, if you give me a child for the first 6 years, I will sow a seed that cannot be unsown. And I think we almost might need to kind of give that a little consideration. Can we build young patriots? Sure, we can. We can teach patriots are welcoming. Patriots are warm people. Patriots don't spit on others. So maybe there is a little more hope for the future than I would ordinarily have thought. These days and times, I'm never really sure what to get my hopes up for or not. I always hope for my voice to hold that longer than an hour, but it never does. So, guys, to the 59-minute and 30-second mark, I'm going to have to call it a day. I'm sorry. Give us a call tomorrow, 949-629-3820, starting at noon, and let us know what's going on in your world. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy a little day of reflection here. And you know what they say, or what is it we always say about this time? I think it might be something like Roger woke up